So I have set myself another challenge. I had a grandiose idea on like January 29th, January 30th, that I wanted to do something with my favorite booktube person, Emma, from Drinking by My Shelf, who is a good friend of mine. And I was like, what could I do with her that could be really fun? I thought, how about Emma controls my TBR for the entire month of February? Because, you know, at this point, I'll read anything as long as it's not too sad, which is the parameters that I gave her. I don't like super sad books. But even then, if it's on her TBR that she wants me to get into, I'm gonna do it for the video because I love Emma, because I'm trying to, you know, branch out. Basically, Emma and I have fairly different reading tastes. Like, we agree on some stuff, for sure. Like, we love a strong female character. We love a bit of drama. We tend to agree on books about feminism. We differ in a lot of other ways. Like, I read a lot of romance. Emma reads a lot of thrillers. That's an example. So this is going to be interesting. So in front of me is the video that Emma just sent me, which I will put somewhere on screen so you can see it. Alrighty.
Hello Emma, coming at you from my bookshelves to bring you your February TBR. It's a short month and I've picked 10 books for you, so good luck.
She has chosen 10 books for me. Honestly, I read 12 last month. I think I can do this.
With these, I really hope you like these because I've picked all books that I absolutely love. So if you don't like them, we're not going to be friends anymore and we'll have a really big feud and it'll be like the booktube drama of the century. So, are you ready for the books that you have to, legally, you're obliged to love? And I don't think you've read any of these. I went through your Goodreads, so fingers crossed. Okay, the first book I want you to read is The Circle by Dave Eggers.
All I know about The Circle is that there's a movie with Tom Hanks and Emma Watson where Emma Watson does a bad accent.
So this one, I absolutely love this book. Archie hates it, he thinks it's rubbish. So I'm really intrigued to see, do I just have bad taste? The movie was really bad, so don't just skip the book and go and watch the movie, I will know. Okay, I saw that you read Persepolis, so next I think you should read Embroideries, which is by the same author, and this one is about her talking to her mother and her aunts and her grandmother and basically all the women in her life while they do embroidery, chatting about their sex lives. It's fucking ace.
That's very peak Emma and I. Like, I feel like that hits both of our vibes beautifully. Emma and I actually used to have a book club, which we should start up again, called Girl Sex 101, which was a book club about gender and sexuality. And we did it for a while, and we read books that we mostly agreed on, I would say. So, and the first book that we read was actually like a hard-hitting sort of like graphic novel meets novel book. So yeah, I feel good about this.
I don't actually own the next book I want you to read, so I can't hold it up. But it's The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennett. This one I read years ago and I loved it. It's really short, so that should help. And it's about the Queen. It's basically the Queen gets addicted to reading. She discovers her local library and then she just doesn't want to do any of her royal duties anymore. She just wants to read all day and it's adorable. You'll love it. Book number 4 I want you to read is, hang on, it's all the way down here, One Day by David Nichols. I can't believe you haven't read this one already, but it wasn't on your Goodreads. If you have read it, then just read a different David Nichols. That's your challenge. But yeah, you should read this one. It's a book that I read all in one day, and I read it, I remember exactly where I was when I read it. I was sitting in Italy on my gap year on a hill, being really homesick, and then reading this book and being like, actually, this is really cool. My life is really cool. So I love it. Read it. A really sweet book I think you'll like is Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I've talked about this one a lot. It's about a time-traveling cafe in Tokyo, and it's really, really sweet. It did make me cry. I know you said you didn't want anything sad, but it made me cry like happy emotion tears, so I think you'll be okay. Though, while we're talking about that, I did pick one that is really sad. I know you like specifically told me not to, but I saw that you haven't read any Adam Silvera, and I think that you really should have read some Adam Silvera because he's great, and you should read this one, More Happy Than Not. This was the first one I read and I love it so much, but it is like it is heartbreaking. So if you actually don't want to read anything sad, then maybe that's not a good one. But it's great. It's about a young boy growing up in New York and coming to terms with his sexuality, and then also there is this company that exists. It's kind of like the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind. There's this company that exists that can like wipe parts of your memory, and you will see how that becomes relevant. Oh my god. How many books was that? That was 6. Book number 7 we both read last year or 2 years ago, The Favourite Sister by Jessica Knoll. And actually I think her first book was better, so I think you should read that one. I've got it here somewhere, hang about. Luckiest Girl Alive. This one is less like controversial and bizarre than The Favourite Sister. It's just like super powerful, and it's just like twists and turns and what is going to happen next. Unlikable main character, but in the best way. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Number 8, this is the one that you definitely have to love because this is literally my favourite book of recent years. This is Beartown by Frederick Backman.
Emma's getting me to read all the books that I have heard amazing things about, partially from her, but in general. So my stubborn reading sense is finally being put in its place, which it should be. So thank you, Emma.
This is not a small book, sorry. This is, again, it's sad, but it's like it's got sad parts, but it's also got really hopeful parts, so hopefully that's okay with your criteria. It'll make you really angry though. It's about like a small town hockey team, and it's about toxic masculinity and just that men suck, basically. It'll make you super angry. It's not a happy book, but it's absolutely brilliant. Book number 9, hang on, where's my list gone? Book number 9 is a YA book, and that is None of the Above. This is about a girl finding out that she's intersex, and it's really good. I really enjoyed this one. I maybe should read it again. I feel like this is one that we maybe talked about doing for our Girl Sex 101 book club and then never did. We should start that back up again, by the way, when you've read this book.
Literally, I say this earlier, Emma says it here, and we should, Emma, we should start it back up again.
And then finally, book number 10, this is another one. This was my favourite book when I was a teenager. Feeling Sorry for Cecilia by Jacqueline Moriarty. This is like a really weird, quirky, fun YA book about a girl called Elizabeth, and her best friend is called Celia, and she's gone missing. And the whole thing is written in letters. Sometimes it's Elizabeth writing the letters to Celia, but a lot of the time it's like these fake letters to Elizabeth from like made up organisations. Doesn't make any sense. So it'll be like, Dear Elizabeth, signed from the Cold Hard Truth Association, and like the letter is, so it's like her subconscious, all of her thoughts come in the forms of letters to her. Does that make any sense? It's really good. And then she also has a pen pal, so some of the stories she writes to her pen pal. It's really good. Maybe I'll reread this one as well if you're reading it in February. Okay, there you go, that's your TBR, that's 10 books for you to read in February. I'm so nervous that you're not going to like any of them and then we won't be friends anymore. Good luck!
So that is my TBR. I'm very excited. They're all books, as I mentioned, that are not necessarily something that I would read. I think One Day is probably close to like what I'm comfortable with, and then maybe None of the Above is definitely something that I would pick up on my own, but like most things I wouldn't, so this is good. I'm very excited. It's a good mix, and I mean, if I hate them all, Emma, like we can have our booktube feud, which will be cute and like good for views, so that's fine. So I think what I'm gonna do is try to find all of these. I'm probably gonna use a lot of Scribd because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. That's how I do a lot of my reading. And then maybe potentially the library, and then maybe potentially actually going to the library. So we'll see. It's pretty late right now, so I'll probably wait to do that tomorrow, which is February 3rd. I'm a little behind already, but that's okay. It's fine. So yeah, I'm very excited about this. This is going to be fun. I didn't vlog in February, mostly because I was tired of it after January. But I did really enjoy my month. It was like the weirdest weather month, and I had a lot of fun just listening to these audiobooks, reading the books physically, sitting outside when it was actually nice weather, or when it was basically about to tornado, which is kind of related to the next book, when it's pouring rain. It made me feel like I was in London and with Emma with all of the rain and the crazy weather. And then it snowed, which was perfect reading weather by far. I mean, it was picturesque and beautiful, and I really enjoyed that. And then I just spent a lot of time painting and listening to audiobooks, using my weekends to really enjoy that. And then I read a few books physically, but my favorite thing of the entire month was when I went to go to Florida and see all my friends down there and did absolutely no reading, but it worked out okay. Here's me now. The first book I'm going to talk about is The Circle by Dave Eggers. This was published in 2013. It's sort of a literary fiction meets thriller novel about a young woman who starts working at a predominant tech company and very slowly realizes, or you realize as the reader, that this tech company is real creepy and is data mining and doing lots of like scary stuff beyond just data mining, like knowing everything about somebody and having this like hive mob mentality, and you're just sitting there going like, is this happening at Google? Is this happening at Facebook? Is this going to happen to us? Has this already happened to us? So as you can see, this book definitely had the desired effect that I think Dave Eggers wanted to have, which is to be a searing and scary sort of Black Mirror look at how corporate America, specifically Silicon Valley, is taking over the world with no consequences. So that's cool. I think that part of the book worked really well. You're really being guided through this world, through this company culture, and the way that it's slowly poisoning the earth and all of its inhabitants beautifully, but also being a very sort of one-dimensional look at women, if that makes any sense. Basically, the main character is a woman. She's a young woman. And I don't think Dave Eggers wrote her very well. I understood her choices in terms of the way that she gets so attached to this company culture and this company the longer she's been there. That worked really well. What didn't work well was her relationships with the men in her life. Specifically, the romantic and sexual relationships with the men in her life. Some of these scenes are egregious and weird and written very gross. So I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. And that's on that. The next book is Starter for 10 by David Nichols. So Emma wanted me to read One Day. The thing is, I've seen the movie. And the thing is, I don't want to read that book and get emotionally attached for what happens at the end of One Day in the film and also in the book. So that was a no-go. I told Emma, no. She said, okay, instead of reading One Day, read Starter for 10 by David Nichols. She has not read that book in a really long time. She really likes the movie. I'm making that disclaimer. This book, I did not like it, like at all. It was published in 2003 and follows a young man who comes from a single mother and in a working class town in England, and he goes to like a decent university. And while he's there, he kind of gets a little like infatuated, more than a little infatuated with a young woman, and ends up auditioning for University Challenge, partially because he really wants to and he loves University Challenge, which is sort of like a Jeopardy-esque trivia show, long running in the UK where university teams compete. But also because he wants to like date this girl. So there's a couple things happening. This sort of fell prey to the same problem The Circle had, which is you had a male character, in this case a male character who's being really weird towards the woman that he's trying to woo. He gave me very Joe from You vibes without all the murder. Like he's just very stalkerish and creepy and like he's just like the thoughts that he has about this girl, like it's so one-dimensional in the way he views her. And I get that it's from his perspective, and I don't think David Nichols is trying to say he's romantic or great or anything. He's meant to be this sort of broken young man trying to figure it out, but it just was never unpacked well, that relationship, and that really bothered me. Also, almost no academic vibes, which is something I enjoy in a book, and I didn't get any of that. And almost no University Challenge, but also didn't work. What I think is really interesting is I'm a big fan of Nick Hornby, and I kind of put Nick Hornby and David Nichols in a similar boat. They're both like middle-aged white guys from England who write these sort of pseudo-romantic stories. But what I think works well in Nick Hornby's books, and I've read a lot more of his books than David Nichols, is he strikes a balance of writing these male characters who are really broken and awful and kind of assholes, but he unpacks those things about them, and they end up learning from those mistakes, and you see them transform by the end of the book or a movie adaptation, whatever it may be. Think about a Boy or a High Fidelity or Fever Pitch. He does that really, really well. Now, David Nichols never got to that point. You never see him really learn from his mistakes. He's just sort of bumbling about and doing a bad job of learning from all of his bumblings about, if you will. So far in this month, I'd read 2 books, and 2 that I didn't really like a lot. So I was like, oh man, maybe Emma and I will never be friends again. Maybe this is it. And then I read Beartown by Frederick Bachman. Beartown is a book I would have never picked up in a million years. It's very sad, and that was something that really would have been like, oh, I don't want to read that, it's sad. But I picked it up for this challenge, and I loved it. I listened to an audiobook. It was a fantastic audiobook. I really like the narrator. She's read some other books that I really like, and she's just a very good narrator. But the thing about Beartown, if you don't know what it's about, I'm sure you do. It's about a small little town in Sweden, and they're a hockey town, and they're known for hockey, basically. And sexual violence occurs, sexual assault occurs, and it sort of like completely breaks this town open. And you see it from so many different perspectives, from the managing director of the hockey club to the players, to his children, to just people who are in the town, and you see them kind of understand and deal with this piece of trauma that's occurred, and you see it very personally, and you also see it kind of spread. And it was dark and sad, so sad, and just breaks you, but every character is treated with such like a fragility and a kindness, but also a brutal take on their perspectives, and I really loved it. It was so good. Very rarely do I feel like I read a book where there wasn't one part of it that didn't work for me, and every part of it really worked. It was fantastic, and it was really powerful, and I cried. It's handling a really difficult subject, but with such, I believe, a delicacy that it really deserves, but also not pulling any punches. So Beartown was like 10 out of 10. Loved it. Definitely going into one of my like favorite books of all time. So Beartown definitely made up for starter for 10. And The Circle. And then I read Feeling Sorry for Cecilia by Jacqueline Moriarty. This was really interesting because this book was published in 2000. It's an early YA book, and it gave me the greatest YA nostalgia from that period. Weirdly, I actually read the sequel to this book, or like in this loose trilogy, when I was in middle school, and called The Year of Secret Assignments, and it was a book I loved, and I had no idea that there was a book that came before it, which is Feeling Sorry for Cecilia. This was great. I mean, it's about a young girl, and it's told in a series of letters and notes between her and her mom, her and her pen pal, or school pen pal, and also her and her friend Cecilia, who at the beginning of the book goes missing. And basically it's about her relationship with all the people in her life. It's a very small slice of life story, but done in like a hilarious, heartwarming way. I really loved it. It was like, it really brought me back to being that age, being like 13, 14, 15, and the relationships that you have with your friends and your parents and the people in your life, but also the relationship that you have with yourself and how you're dealing with that. And you see that through the letters Cecilia writes to herself that are kind of mean and hard and very like insecure. And I felt that so much. I have to go. I will finish this later. Last night I told you I loved you. Woke up, blamed it on the vodka. None of that is true, but just the transition from what I just look like to what I look like now is really coming through beautifully. I had to go have dinner with my boyfriend, so I didn't finish talking about the rest of the books I read in February. I can't get my months straight. So the next book I read was The Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. This was an interesting one because this was sort of a redemption moment for Emma and I. She recommended me to read The Favorite Sister by Jessica Knoll like last year, and she had very mixed feelings about that book, and I came out with very mixed feelings about that book and how it handles this idea of a feminist thriller or a feminist story, but with these characters who are very unlikable or doing things that are very problematic. And Emma told me, she said, like, this book, Luckiest Girl Alive, handles that idea of this really problematic feminist story. And it definitely did work so much better. This book is about a young woman who has this sort of perfect life in New York City, and she's really struggling to keep this perfect life, this perfect image. And you find out that something really traumatic happened to her when she was a young person in high school, and she's been sort of trying to live past that since then. And she's sort of famous for this traumatic event. So you don't find out what it is until much later in the book, but it definitely surprised me. And the way this book told her story surprised me. I was expecting it to be very Gone Girl, and it definitely wasn't. So I really enjoyed that unexpected twist and the way the story folds before you. This book is probably just about as intense as you can get with... This book definitely I don't think would work for everybody. It was very slow, the first like 2/3 of it. The last third was so interesting and fast-paced, and I really appreciated the respect that Jessica Knoll gave her main character in showing both this woman who is really messed up in a lot of ways from her trauma, and also her like ideals of beauty and weight, and her relationships to those ideas are really problematic and sad and scary, but she also had a lightness to her, and like there was a real sense of kindness that she gave this character, and I just really liked it. I really enjoyed it a lot. So that one was it was very good. And then I finished the month with Embroideries by Marjane Satrapi, who wrote Persepolis. Emma recommended this to me because I had read Persepolis. And this is a book about sex and sexuality and this really frank conversation between Marjane Satrapi and the women in her family, talking about relationships and sex and their relationship to those things. And it was really honest and funny and brutal, and I really enjoyed it. It's a very quick little read, but it packs like a very serious punch. So it's definitely like a book that, as I kind of thought it would, aligns really well with like the stuff that Emma and I both really enjoy reading. So yeah, I mean, I felt like this entire month was very successful. Like the things that I didn't like didn't surprise me. Like The Circle, I didn't like it, but I wasn't super surprised I didn't like it. Or Started for 10, I wasn't like crazy surprised I didn't like it. But the things that I really loved were books that for the most part took me out of my comfort zone. And they were books that I feel like only Emma could have gotten me to read them. So I don't know, I really appreciated this whole experience, and I really enjoyed it. And I feel like I understand Emma's reading taste a bit better, while also I feel like I widened my own reading taste, which is always a good vibe. I am going to make more regular videos in March, so please be on the lookout for those. As I will not be doing another month log reading challenge in March, I am going to do one in April for my boyfriend. I'm going to read some of his favorite books. So, I mean, this whole channel is an exercise in selfishness and the need for attention in a small scale. So it's going great. Oh, I made it dark. Anyway, bye.